Hey, I would like to take a few moments just to chat with you guys about documentation that you need to bring to a dealership. What happens if you have bad credit, no credit, slow credit, no down payment, stuff that you need to know when you're buying your next car at your dealership. If you're interested, stay tuned. Hello, social media. This is Jorge Lopez, your sales consultant over at Tomball Ford. I hope you guys are doing well and having a fabulous day. Well, you know what? I was out in the lot checking out some inventory, and I got a message from somebody that follows the channel, and they said, hey, I am a first-time buyer. I don't have credit, but I have a little bit of money down. What is the likelihood? What are the chances of me getting into a vehicle? And I was talking to him and gave him some information, gave him my thoughts on it, and hopefully we can put something together in the near future. But then that prompted this video. And I said, well, if this customer had a question about that, I'm pretty sure that there's many of you guys that have questions on how to buy a vehicle, if you have bad credit, repos, no credit at all. What's the documentation that you need to take to the dealership in order for them to help you out? So this is why I'm making this video. And by all means, I am not a financial expert, but I've been here at the dealership for quite some time, about 18 years now, that allowed me to see many types of credits, many types of customers. So I don't know everything, but I know a lot about how we are able to help a customer out, you out, if you're not sure about buying a vehicle. So stay tuned to the video so that we can chat about stuff that you need to know when you're going into your dealership to buy your next vehicle. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to let me know. Write them in the comments below. I'm pretty quick about responding to your questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and chat about this video. But you know what? Let's go to my office. Let me go to my office so that it could be a little bit more quieter, a little bit more personable. And we can get out of this heat because it's getting warm and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning and I feel like it's 100 degrees already. So on with the video. Let's get to the office. YouTube channel. Welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this video regarding stuff that you need to know, things that happen at the dealership, ways to buy a car, even if you have limited credit, no credit, bad credit, or even good credit, which you shouldn't have any problems there. But I wanted to share my experience because I've been here for about 18 years now at the dealership here as sales consultant. So by all means, I am not a financial advisor, but I feel like my experience here and the many different financial situations that I've encountered with customers have allowed me to learn and to kind of see the ways that banks look at deals and how we structure deals, how we have to structure deals so that the banks can help us to help our customers. And let me tell you that I've seen a lot of different credits between a low 400 to a high 850 credit score. So we've had our fair share of different customers, and it's always a pleasure to help anybody. Just that some customers we have to work extra hard so that we can prove to the banks that this would be a good loan for them to achieve. So the banks look in general in a lot of things, okay? But they look at four primary things. One of them is how able are you to pay? So they look at debt to income ratio. They look at how much debt you have. So on your credit report, you have a list of all of these debts that you have, including your credit, your car loans if you have any, house payments. They look at any other financial obligation that shows up on your credit report. And they look at your income that comes into the household. So they want to see, obviously, that difference pretty apart. So let's say that you make $4,000 per month and you have a debt obligation on your credit for $2,000 a month. Well, you've got about $2,000 left for spending for another car note and stuff like that. So that would be a good example right there, a good way to start moving forward on a loan. But let's say that you make a lot of money, and let's say that you make 10 grand a month. Okay, that's a lot. But let's say that you've got $9,500 in outgoing debt. Now, even though you make a lot of money, in that situation, the bank is going to deny the loan because that is way too much debt to have for that income that comes into the household. So the banks like to see a good debt to income ratio. So that's part number one. You have to be able to sustain a car note. The second thing that they look at is stability. So how stable are you? Have you been at your work for a good amount of time? Have you been at your residence for a good amount of time? So banks like to see customers that stay in one place. So for some reason, they've kind of correlated stability with low risk. So if you're the kind of customer that is jumping from opportunity to opportunity and from job to job and from one address to another address, that does not look good in the bank's eyes. So how long have you been at your work? How long have you been at your residence? Ford and other banks would love to see 2 years at least. 5 would be preferred, and that would be a good start. So consistency is key. So try not to move a lot from job to job or from residence to residence if you're trying to apply for a car loan or any other loan in general. The other thing that they look at is overall credit. So there's FICO scores, there's credit scores, which is a number on your credit bureaus, on your credit reports, which, by the way, there's 3 credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So depending on how many payments you made, depending if you've been late, if you've been making them on time, if you've got your debt maxed out, or if you've got your debt pretty low on your credit, all of those things are put together and they come up with a credit score. And your credit score is basically a number that tells the banks how able are you to make a payment. If you've been late on your car notes or if you've been late on your house notes, then guess what? Your credit score is going to go down. And the opposite occurs as well. So if you've been making good payments and you've got a lot of credit available to you, then guess what? Your credit score is going to go up. So overall, they look at your credit history. And I've seen credit scores in the low 400s, but I think you can go all the way to 300, somewhere in that range. And I've seen plenty of credit scores in the 800s, and I think the max would be around 850. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen anything past an 850, but who knows? There might be some 850s out there. We don't know. But yeah, they look at your credit score and your overall credit history. Most credits fall in the range of a 600 credit score, so maybe 640, 650 is kind of an average credit score. We feel like anything over a 740 is considered good. Anything over an 800 is considered excellent. But in most cases, an 800 credit score's interest rate is going to be almost identical to a 740. So try to shoot for that 740. And if you don't know your credit score, and if you're curious to know, there's services out there that you can go into, and it's free of charge. One of them, I believe, is Credit Karma. And you can go into this service and check your overall credit score. It's always good to know where you stand. The other thing that banks look at is what type of loan are you trying to get and what kind of equity are you bringing to the table. So we see a lot of customers that are in a negative equity situation, or commonly known as upside down. And when you're trying to get into a car, a new vehicle loan, and you're bringing negative equity from your trade-in, then that does not look good in the bank's eyes. The banks want to finance you 100% of the vehicle, and there are some cases where they can go past that. Like if you don't have any money down, then you're financing 100% plus your tax, title, license. But then when you start adding negative equity onto the deal and there's no cash commitment from the customer, then it makes it really difficult for the bank to finance the loan. So down payment is key. A clear title for a trade-in is key as well. So any type of equity, positive equity that you can bring into the table, that's the fourth thing that the banks look into to decide if they're going to give you a loan or not. So thinking in your head, you have to bring something to the table if you want a good rate, if you are wanting to get a good interest rate, and to make it easy on the banks to say yes. So think positive equity all the time. Now, obviously there's tons of choices out there for you to finance your next vehicle, but the number one thing that I would ask you to refrain from doing at all costs, if possible, do not go to a note lot. Note lots really do not help you at all. One, because they don't report usually to the credit bureaus, and you finance the vehicle at their location, you make payments at their location, and nothing gets reported to the bureaus. And you want something to be reported to the bureaus because you want to reestablish your credit. And a lot of the times I hear from customers that these note lots, they charge you a high interest rates, and we're talking 20%, 26%, and they're acting like they're doing you a favor. And I completely disagree with that, where there's so many other options that you can investigate. So go to a reputable dealer, that's number one, and find yourself, number two, a good reputable sales consultant. Now, I get it. I'm in car sales, and I get that that my job title here has a lot of negative reputation, but like in any business, there's always one bad apple in a store. I've been here for 18 years. If you Google me, if you Google Jorge Lopez Tomball Ford reviews, if you just Google my name, you'll see so many positive reviews and so many customers writing good things about my dealership and good things about us, about myself as well. So go to a reputable dealership that you know, that you trust. Do some research on it. Go to Google and find yourself a good, reputable sales consultant that is looking after you. And remember, yes, the sales consultants work for the dealership. But at the end of the day, if they don't make a deal happen, they do not get paid, okay? So they're working for you as well. So find yourself a good, reputable dealership. Find yourself a good, reputable sales consultant, and avoid the note lots at all costs. Okay, so let's get to the nitty-gritty of this. So how do banks calculate payments, and how do they decide on what payment to give you? So usually banks give you anywhere from a 12% to a 20% of what you make per month for a car note. So let's say, for example, that you make $3,000 per month before taxes, just gross. So if they give you like a 20% for payment, that means that you can afford, in their eyes, a payment of $600 per month. So when you go into a dealership, you kind of see how much you make per month, and then use of about a 20% for that, and that'll give you kind of your max payment of what most banks will allow you to have. In some cases, it actually could drop down to about 14%. So it just depends on your credit history and how well you've made your payments, but usually about 20% would be a good start for you to get an idea. So now let's chat about if you have tough credit to deal with, if you have a bankruptcy. So let's chat about what possibilities we have for you and what you need to know and what you need to bring to the table and to your dealership. So there's two bankruptcies. There's a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. The Chapter 7 is actually a little bit easier for you to get into a car. And yes, you can get into a vehicle even with bankruptcies, okay? We have banks that help us with customers. So if you are in the market for a vehicle and you live in the Houston, Tomball, Texas area, let me know and we can definitely hook you up and get you into a car. So Chapter 7, once that is dismissed, you can immediately start the process into getting into a vehicle. If you're in a chapter 13, then that's a little bit tougher because you do have to get permission from, what's it called? From a trustee, I believe is the name of it. So you have to get permission to get into a vehicle. So that makes it a little bit harder for you to get into a car. But the reality is also that in these two situations, the interest rate is not going to be favorable. Okay, so be warned, your interest rate might be a little bit on the higher side, but don't worry because we've got options and programs from the manufacturers on new vehicles that can help you get into a vehicle, reestablish your credit at an interest rate that is not going to kill you. So yes, you can get into a vehicle, and let's talk about the documentations that you're going to need if you are in a chapter 7 or 13, or if you overall have bad credit. Okay, so the thing that you need to do first of all, if you want to get into a loan and you have tough credit, consider a cosigner. If somebody is willing and able to help you, that would be the number one thing and the most important thing to help you reestablish yourself and get yourself back on your feet. But be careful, it has to be a close family member. I mean, I'm talking your grandmother, your spouse, brother, sister, stuff like that, that could help you move yourself back into your on your feet. Some banks are really specific on this, so be careful if you're going past your family of your circle of family, because some banks will not allow this. The other thing that you can do is get yourself into a good equity situation. So bring money to the table as much as you can, even if you have to limit yourself from eating out or from buying stuff. If you really want to establish your credit, a car note is going to be the fastest way that you can do so. More than a credit card, more than any other loan that you can have, a car loan is going to catapult your credit score like you wouldn't believe. So cash is king. If you have a trade-in, that will also help you as well. So keep that in mind whenever you're wanting to get into a loan if you have tough credit. Now, let's say that you don't have any credit whatsoever. Let's say that you are a first-time buyer. Let's say that you are a military personnel that just got out of the service and you don't have any credit whatsoever. I can tell you what I did when I started. When I graduated college, I got myself a credit card. Okay, getting a credit card is actually a lot easier for somebody that doesn't have any type of credit now than later. So it's easiest and it's best if you start early. So get a credit card. That'll catapult your credit score like you wouldn't believe. That'll start. But remember, be responsible. Do not go overboard. That is just to get your credit started. Also, look into a brand new car. If you are starting fresh, don't have any credit whatsoever, manufacturers like Ford Motor Company definitely has programs for first-time buyers with good interest rates. So consider a brand new car over a used car if you just want to get yourself into a vehicle. We've got 0%. We've got good programs for those that are wanting to start fresh and that don't have anything whatsoever. And remember, start entry level. Okay, these banks are really hesitant about giving you a loan. So don't go overboard and try to shoot for an F-250 truck. Start low, start entry level, start inexpensive. Remember, you're only dating this, okay? You're not marrying it. And then after a few years of having a car note, good history, maybe you got yourself into a better job, then at that point you can go ahead and get yourself into something bigger and better. Also, if you are starting fresh, you can get a cosigner. A cosigner can also help you to get into a car loan. And if you can bring some money to the table, 20% would be ideal, but there's banks that are a little bit more flexible on that and help you with minimal down payment. Now, talking about down payment, banks usually like to see 20% of the price of the vehicle for a down payment. Obviously, that helps you get a cheaper payment. You get a lower balance owed. It's easier to get approved. And at the end of the day, it's better for the interest. So interest rates is going to be a little bit better if you bring money to the table. So documentation. Most of the banks do use the same type of documentations across the board. So prepare to bring, obviously, an ID. That would be like the number one thing. Your driver's license, a passport. That's something that you would require in order for you to get yourself into a loan and purchase a vehicle. Now, if you have tough situation in credit, or if you are starting off credit and don't have much or very limited, banks might require proof of income. So proof of income could be your W-2 form, your 1099 form, your pay stub, last pay stub that might show your year to date. That is acceptable proof of income. Also, maybe bank statements, maybe 6 months worth of bank statements if you are if you work for yourself, or if you have your company. A letter from your employer will not work, and I've seen this a lot of the times where customers bring a letter from their employer stating how much they make, but no banks or hardly any would accept a letter from the employer. So do not bring that. Also, your 2 years worth of tax filings, that could also work as well. So all of those are acceptable proof of incomes. They will also require sometimes proof of residence. So a bill, something that shows where you live. That could be a cell phone bill, your water bill, your cable bill. So anything that shows your name and your address is acceptable proof of residence. And then lastly, you have to bring vehicle insurance. If you're financing a vehicle, you do have to have current insurance. A lot of the times I do get customers come in, they don't have any insurance because they hadn't bought a car before. So we cannot release the vehicle until they have insurance. And we've got companies on hand here that we use all the time to help a customer out if they do need an insurance quote. And that way they can go ahead and get approved with me and drive off in their new vehicle. All right, guys, well, there you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out this video. I'm hoping that you got a little bit of good information out of this. This is just stuff that I've seen over the years and the different credit that I've seen as well, and the different documentations and how Ford and other banks structure these loans. If you found this video a little bit informative, we would love a like, so give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, subscribe and consider subscribing to the channel. We have tons of videos coming, reviews and how-to videos and videos just like this. And if you have a question, do not hesitate. Comment below with a question. I'll be more than happy to answer that question. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching the video. If you have a question, let us know. We'll talk to you soon. Have a blessed day.